You are born into a world that bends. Not for everyone, just for you. The house you grow up in isn't a home. It's a fortress. Marble floors that echo with silence. Grounds that stretch so far, the gardeners need schedules to cover them all. From the moment you open your eyes, the universe seems to have agreed, quietly and without argument, that you are different, special, untouchable. Before you can read, you are taught something far more important than any alphabet. They call it omertà, the code. Your father drills it into you with the patience of a man who knows what the alternative looks like. 3 rules, simple enough for a child to memorize. Rule 1, you see nothing, you know nothing, and if the police are involved, your vocabulary shrinks to 4 words. I don't recall that. Rule 2, you never dial emergency services. Not for yourself, not for anyone. Rule 3, and this one is carved into you like scripture. You never, under any circumstances, betray the family. You mouth the words, you pass the test, but you don't feel them yet. To you, this is just something father requires, like table manners or a firm handshake. The only thing that feels truly real is the endless, insulating comfort of wealth. And for now, that's more than enough. Your world is small by design. You are kept behind a moving wall of men, broad-shouldered, quiet-eyed, never too far. You call them your uncles because it's easier than understanding what they really are. Your father's work is a subject that lives behind a closed door you are not yet permitted to open. You don't know the specifics. You only know the symptoms. The deference of strangers, the way townspeople look at you with something caught between reverence and dread, as though you might be sacred or dangerous, and they aren't entirely sure which. Then one afternoon, boredom makes a decision that changes everything. You slip past the perimeter. You find the keys to one of the crew's cars, a machine built for speed, and you take it because you've never been told you couldn't. The engine growls beneath you like something alive. You push it. You feel the rush. And then, in a single, sickening second, the car bucks sideways and connects with something, someone. The impact is dull, final. You sit there shaking, absolutely certain your life is finished. In your child's mind, you're already wearing a prison uniform, already buried beneath decades of consequences. You wait for the sirens. You wait for the flashing lights. They never come. What comes instead is quieter and far more terrifying. Men arrive, phone calls are made, a briefcase changes hands, and then nothing. No body. No investigation, no record that anything happened at all. The world simply resets. You sit with that knowledge for a long time. What it means is too enormous for a child to fully process. So it settles into your bones instead, waiting. The law, you now understand, is not a ceiling, it is a suggestion, a boundary that applies to other people. People who don't have what your family has, people who don't know what your family knows. You have just tasted power for the first time. It doesn't taste like anything you expected. It tastes like silence. Time passes. The streets grow quieter around your father's name. Whatever wars were fought are finished. The competition, a word that, in your world, doubles as a body count, has thinned considerably. And so, for the first time, they let you attend a real school. You walk into that building like a ghost in clothes that cost more than most families spend on rent. Your bodyguards orbit you from a distance, invisible to everyone else but always there. You should feel protected. Instead, you feel exposed. You don't know how to talk to these people. You don't know the rhythms, the jokes, the casual cruelty of ordinary adolescence. So you stand at the edge of the playground and watch. Then you notice him, another wealthy kid, different kind of wealthy, loud and careless with it, buying lunch for the entire cafeteria. And the effect is immediate. Every kid in that room gravitates toward him like iron filings toward a magnet. The equation is almost insultingly simple. The next day, you execute. But you don't merely copy the strategy. You detonate it. You arrive with cash in your pockets and the mentality of a man acquiring assets. You buy rounds of food, hand out gifts, and within 48 hours you have accumulated something that loosely resembles a social life. You file the lesson away. Loneliness is just a resource problem. You have solved loneliness. What you haven't bought is loyalty, but you're too young to know the difference yet. The people surrounding you love the current running through your wallet. They have no idea who's holding the wire. You decide, with the conviction of someone who has never been truly hungry, that the phrase "money can't buy everything" is propaganda, invented by people too broke to run the experiment properly. But there are others who don't care about your money. Trust fund kids with enough cushion of their own to feel bulletproof. They see your performance, the gifts, the entourage, the quiet arrogance, and they read it correctly. They read it as a declaration. They don't know your father's name, and that ignorance makes them dangerous. One afternoon, the suffocation of constant surveillance becomes too much, and you decide to breathe free for an hour. You lock a bathroom door, squeeze through a window, and vanish. The first time in your life you've moved through the world without a shadow behind you. It lasts exactly long enough to get you in trouble. They find you around a corner. The same group of rich kids who've been sharpening their contempt for weeks. Seeing you alone, finally stripped of your invisible armor, one of them decides to test the theory. The first shove is almost gentle, an invitation to collapse. You know enough to fight. You don't know enough to win. Not here. Not outnumbered. They come at you with the gleeful efficiency of people who've never faced real consequences, and you discover something no amount of money has prepared you for, the particular humiliation of your own blood in your mouth, the cold ground beneath you, the sound of laughter overhead. In desperation, you try the only weapon you know. You scream figures at them. You tell them you can make it worth their while. You offer them everything in your pockets to make it stop. They laugh harder. They hit harder. Lying there on the filth of that pavement, the foundational myth of your childhood takes a bullet. Cash, it turns out, requires a functioning social structure to mean anything. It requires people who believe in the game. These boys have their own money. They don't want yours. They want to see you bleed. You limp back through the school doors looking like evidence. Your bodyguards see you immediately. Their faces don't break. No emotion crosses them. They don't call the authorities. They don't involve any teacher or administrator. Their eyes simply change. Something warm clicks off. Something cold clicks on, and they disappear. What follows is not a fight. It is a correction. A precise, professional dismantling of the boys who touched you, calculated, thorough, and utterly without the chaos of actual emotion. But the real education happens later that evening. Your father makes one phone call, and the next day, the fathers of those boys Men with drivers and country club memberships, and the unearned confidence of wealth that's never been tested, show up at your door. You watch them come inside. You watch them fold. These men who run companies, who own property, who exist at the very summit of legitimate society, are on their knees in your father's drawing room, trembling, pleading, offering everything they have to avoid whatever comes next. By the following morning, those boys are gone, relocated, erased from your orbit as cleanly as a name removed from a list. Something recalibrates inside you. Money, you now understand, is a tool, a common tool. Lawyers have it, doctors have it. Middle managers scrape it together over a lifetime. But power, real power, is the ability to make a millionaire weep in your hallway, to make people vanish with a word, to exist so far outside the reach of ordinary consequence that consequence itself becomes someone else's problem. And for the first time, you smile, not with warmth, with recognition. You have found what you are. You drop out. The decision takes about as long as it takes to exhale. What exactly would a classroom give you? History? Your family is history, written in ink that doesn't dry. Mathematics? You'll be moving sums of money that require offshore accounts, not textbooks. You walk into your father's study, and you stand before him, not as a child asking permission, but as something new. A recruit presenting himself for duty. He doesn't embrace you. He doesn't say he's proud. He places a weapon in your hand and a piece of paper in the other. An address, a purpose. That's it. That's the ceremony. You begin where everyone begins, regardless of the name on the door, at the bottom. Debt collection is your tuition. You track down men who borrowed from people they should never have borrowed from. Men who made the catastrophic miscalculation of thinking they could simply not pay. You learn very quickly that the art of persuasion, in this industry, has physical dimensions. You become fluent in that language. Your nights are spent on docks that smell of brine and diesel, moving cargo that doesn't exist on any manifest. While your former classmates are hunched over exam prep, you're dissolving into the shadows of a criminal infrastructure that moves like a living thing beneath the city. Every law you break feels like crossing through a door you can never reopen. You stop looking back. The concept of morality doesn't leave you dramatically. It just gradually loses its relevance. It becomes the concern of people who don't understand how the world actually operates. Naive scaffolding built by men who needed to believe in something. You belong here, completely. For the first time in your life, you belong somewhere completely. Then your father dies. He goes slowly, the way old lions sometimes do, not in battle but by degrees, until one morning the strength simply doesn't return. His funeral draws the entire underworld, dressed in black and grief that is almost entirely theatrical. You watch your rivals weep over the casket while calculating trajectories in the back of their skulls. The math is simple. The throne is empty. Who moves first survives. Who hesitates is buried next. The peace your father maintained through sheer authority evaporates before the flowers on his grave have wilted. And what rises in its place is something you were never quite prepared for, even after everything. The enemies that come for you don't carry foreign names. They have your blood, your brothers, your cousins, the boys you ate Sunday dinner with, who know your habits and your blind spots better than any rival ever could. In the calculus of succession, They don't see family. They see competition. They see an obstacle with a sentimental advantage. You learn the lesson that crowns require. Mercy is the precise mechanism of your own destruction. Hesitation costs everything. So, you cut the last threads. Whatever was left of the boy who grew up in that fortress, whatever tender remnant still remembered what it meant to trust someone who shared your last name, you surgically remove it. You set traps with the intimacy of someone who knows exactly where to aim. Maybe it's a greeting that turns into an ambush. Maybe it's a glass of something that tastes like reconciliation, but finishes like a verdict. You deceive with warmth. You destroy with precision. You make every betrayal look, from the outside, like an accident or a misunderstanding. One by one, the challengers stop being challengers. When the silence finally settles, it is absolute. You lower yourself into the chair at the head of the table. Your father's chair, still carrying the ghost of his scent, and you survey what's left of your kingdom. Every man in the room keeps their eyes down. The fear in the air is so thick, it has texture. You have won. The cost was everything human you once possessed, stacked like kindling and burned. But the throne is yours. Years pass, then decades. The empire thickens around you. Cash accumulates beyond the ability to meaningfully spend it. You begin measuring your wealth by weight, not number. Politicians arrive at your table like clients at a consultation. Judges appear at your charity events with grateful handshakes. The local law enforcement works, at its highest levels, on a payroll you approve. You have achieved what only a handful of men in history have managed. You have become entirely beyond reach, and that is where it begins to rot. Success of that magnitude carries a hidden infection. It makes you believe your own legend. You stop testing the walls because you've forgotten they're walls at all. You stop watching the shadows because you've decided nothing lives in them anymore. You grow comfortable, expansive, surrounded by men who agree with everything you say because they've watched what happens to men who don't. You are no longer sharp. You are just heavy. While you preside over your empire with the satisfied confidence of a man who believes history is finished, something is forming in the streets below. A new generation. Young, hungry, educated in an entirely different curriculum. Algorithms instead of omertà, cryptocurrency instead of briefcases, encrypted communications instead of whispered meetings in restaurant backrooms. They operate in spaces you can't see, using tools you don't understand, with a hunger that hasn't been softened by decades of easy victory. Your lieutenants bring you reports. Your advisors sit across from you with carefully worded concern and tell you these new crews are eating into your territory, undercutting your prices, and moving product through channels that leave no trace you know how to follow. You wave it off. You call it noise. You have seen young men with ambition before. You were one, and you know they can be educated or eliminated. You tell yourself the wolves are afraid of the lion. What you don't feel yet is how slow you've become. What you don't see is the gasoline already soaking the foundation. The awakening isn't gradual. It arrives as a percussion, the flat, devastating concussion of shaped explosive charges detonating in sequence across multiple locations at once. Not one estate, not one front operation, all of them, simultaneously, in a coordinated strike of terrifying precision. These young crews don't follow your rules because they never believed in your rules. They scoured your patterns with surveillance technology you still barely understand. They mapped your infrastructure with the patience of engineers and the hunger of men with nothing to lose. You shout orders into phones that have already been compromised. You dispatch men into positions the enemy scouted weeks ago from altitudes you can't track. Your soldiers walk into corridors of fire they never see coming. In a single evening, the architecture of decades collapses. You're not a king anymore. You're a target with a price attached to your name. The exit is as graceless as a fall. You grab a bag. Cash. Several million, which represents a rounding error compared to what you once possessed. You leave through a service entrance while the building you've occupied for 30 years begins to consume itself in flames behind you. You slide into an anonymous car and drive into the dark, with your hands shaking on the wheel and the sound of your own heartbeat filling the cabin. In the rearview mirror, the fire looks almost beautiful. You tell yourself this is temporary. You tell yourself this is a tactical withdrawal, not a defeat. You swear to yourself, with the full sincerity of someone who needs very badly to believe something, that you will return, that you will rebuild, that every person responsible for this night will be found. But somewhere beneath the performance, in a part of you that has always known the truth, even when you refuse to speak it, you already know. The story is over. You just haven't stopped moving yet. The neighborhood you hide in doesn't know your name. It's far from the marble and the leather chairs and the deference of frightened men. These streets are hard and immediate, and the people on them read strangers the way predators read the landscape, looking for opportunity, looking for weakness. They spot you immediately. A group of young men, gritty, fast, not affiliated with your enemies, just hungry in the ordinary street-level way that doesn't require ideology or strategy. They see a tailored suit. They see a watch worth more than a car. They see an old man standing alone. The instinct in you ignites. You straighten. You boom your name at them with the full authority of what you were. You tell them they don't understand who they're looking at. You tell them you own this city. They see a delusional man dressed expensively, standing without backup, with nowhere left to go. They take everything: the watch, the wallet, the posture. One of them puts your leg at an angle legs aren't built for. You hear yourself making sounds you've never made before. Small, desperate sounds that have nothing to do with the man you believed yourself to be. They leave you in the mud. And then, through the darkness, you see the blacked-out vehicles moving slowly up the street. Your enemies, methodical, patient. They have been looking for you, and they have found you, because of course they have, because you are no longer someone capable of disappearing cleanly. You move on your broken leg because the alternative is to stop moving permanently. Ahead of you, there is an opening in the earth, a maintenance grate, a sewage pipe, the city's hidden digestive system, black and reeking and low enough that a man must crawl to enter. You crawl. The darkness swallows you whole. Inside, the smell is an assault. The cold is absolute. You press your back against the curved concrete wall and you breathe through your mouth and you wait for something. For the sounds to stop. For a next move to reveal itself. For some version of rescue that your mind keeps constructing and discarding. Hours fold into days. The fever arrives quietly and then screams. The leg won't hold weight. The cold has gotten inside you in a way that has nothing to do with temperature. No one is coming. Above you, the city you built your legend on continues its rotation. The traffic and the transactions and the lives of millions of people who never knew your name and will not notice its absence. The empire has already been divided. The throne is already occupied by men half your age who speak in languages you never learned. And down here, in the dark, in the filth, in the company of actual rats who treat you with the indifference of equals, the great and terrible story of your life reaches its final punctuation. Not an execution, not a legendary last stand, not anything that anyone will carve into marble or whisper about at funerals. Just a man in a sewer, cooling toward the temperature of the earth, while the city that once trembled at his name turns another page without looking back.